The most profitable business in the world is speculation, provided you know what you are doing, and the most ruinous pursuit is speculation, provided you don't. That is the truth. And most men never learn it, because most men come to the market seeking quick riches, not discipline, not patience, not study, but excitement. They chase every flicker on the tape as though a fortune must lie behind it, but fortunes are never caught in that manner. Fortunes are caught by catching the big moves, and catching them before they are plainly visible to the crowd. Do you understand that? Do you know how few men ever sit quietly, waiting, stalking the market like a hunter who has studied his game? The reason most speculators lose is because they try to catch every little swing, every minor jiggle of price, instead of waiting for the moment when the real movement begins. They act like gamblers, throwing chips on every spin of the wheel, and then wonder why they walk away broke. But the market does not pay you for gambling. The market pays you for patience, foresight, and the courage to act when the line of least resistance is clear. Tell me, do you think you can make a fortune by darting in and out for a point here, a half point there, perhaps once or twice, but not over time? Over time, it is the big swing that pays. The big swing and nothing else. I learned this lesson the hard way, as every man must. There were days in my youth when I was content to take a quick profit. I'd snatch a point and feel proud, only to see the stock march on 10 points without me. Do you know that feeling? Of course you do. Every man who speculates knows it, and every man who speculates must sooner or later face the truth. You cannot build wealth by cutting off your profits. You must ride them, you must nurse them, and you must let them grow while the crowd is still in disbelief. A big move never starts with fanfare, it starts quietly, when the market tips its hand, when the signs line up for those willing to watch and wait. The public never sees it in time. They come in when the story is on the front page, when the clerks are chattering about it on the curb, when the move is already half spent. But the professional must learn to recognize the signal before the newspapers, before the crowd, before the noise. That is where the money is. The trick is not guessing. No man can guess right consistently. The trick is observing, waiting, and acting only when the tape tells you the move is about to unfold. Have you ever waited for weeks, sitting idle, while the market did nothing worth your stake? That is the true test of a speculator. Most men cannot bear the waiting, so they fritter away their money in idle trades, and when the great moment arrives they have neither capital nor courage left to act. A market move always begins in the same way. The stock becomes heavy on rallies or stubborn on declines. The action is subtle, but if you have trained your eyes on the tape, you see it. It is not about tips, it is not about stories, it is about the price and its behavior. The price is never wrong. The crowd may chatter, the newspapers may deceive, but the price never lies. Do you look at it with that seriousness? Or do you let your mind be clouded by what others are saying? Remember, the price is the only reality in speculation. All else is noise. There comes a moment when the stock begins to move along its natural course. The line of least resistance presents itself, and that is when the speculator must act with courage. No hesitation, no half measures, no timid probing. If you have read it right, you must plunge. That is how fortunes are made, not by a dozen little scalps, but by catching the one great move before it starts and riding it until it is exhausted. Men ask me, how did you make your millions? And I tell them, it was never my brains, it was never my tips, it was my ability to sit tight, to wait for the big opportunity, and to hold on once I had it. Can you do that? Can you sit tight when you are right, and resist the urge to cash in too soon? The trouble is that human nature works against us in speculation. When we are in profit, we grow nervous. We fear the market will snatch it away, so we sell out too soon. And when we are in loss, we grow hopeful. We cling to the stock, praying it will turn, refusing to admit our mistake. This is exactly backward. We ought to cut losses short and let profits run long. But tell me, how many men truly do it? Precious few. That is why the market is filled with losers, and why those who can do the opposite make fortunes. To catch a big move before it starts, one must be a student of the market, not a follower of the crowd. Study the action, study the volume, study the character of the advance or the decline. Ask yourself, who is buying here? Who is selling here? And why? The crowd never asks these questions. They act on emotion, on gossip, on the impulse of the moment. But the professional asks always, what is the market saying? Not what do I wish it would say, not what is my broker whispering, but what is the action itself revealing? And then he waits. He waits until the picture is unmistakable. Can you do that? Can you watch a stock day after day, resisting every small temptation until the hour arrives? That is the price of catching the big move. You must remember that the market is never wrong, only opinions are. The market will always show you the truth, but you must be patient enough to read it. Men destroy themselves by fighting the market, by trying to impose their will upon it. They say, this stock ought to rise, and when it does not, they keep on buying, piling up losses. Or they say, this stock is surely too high, and they sell short, only to see it climb higher and higher. But the stock does not move because you think it should. It moves because it must. And when it must, the tape will tell you. Have you learned to listen? Once you have caught a big move, the test of character begins. The market will try to shake you out. It will feint, it will retrace, it will tempt you to abandon your position. The crowd will scream that the top is in or that the bottom is made. And all the while, the stock continues along its path. The man who sits tight, who resists the chatter and the feints, who holds on until the move is truly spent, that man takes the profits. The others give theirs back. Tell me, are you strong enough to resist the market's tricks? Do you have the nerve to endure the fluctuations, or will you hand your winnings back at the first sign of trouble? I have always said, it never was my thinking that made the big money for me. It was my sitting tight. And this is the hardest thing for most men to learn. They believe speculation means action, constant buying and selling, a whirlwind of excitement. But speculation is mostly sitting and waiting, and then acting decisively at the right moment. To catch the big move before it starts, you must first have the strength to do nothing until the signal is clear. The truth is, there is nothing new in Wall Street. What has happened before will happen again, and again and again. The game does not change, only the players do, and the reason is simply human nature does not change. The greed, the fear, the hope, the impatience. It is the same today as it was 100 years ago. That is why the same patterns repeat themselves, and why the man who studies the past can foresee the future. Have you studied enough? Or do you think each day brings something new? If you think so, you are fooling yourself. The market will always test you. It will offer false starts, traps, and mirages. But when the true move begins, it will be unmistakable to the trained eye. The stock will move easily, with little resistance, and it will keep on moving despite the crowd's disbelief. That is when you must have the courage to act boldly. The timid man, the man who nibbles, will make little. The man who plunges with conviction, once the signal is clear, is the man who wins. And once in, he must hold and hold and hold until the market tells him it is time to get out. So, when I speak of catching big moves before they start, I do not mean guessing tops or bottoms. No man alive can do that consistently. I mean recognizing the line of least resistance, the true direction of the market, and aligning yourself with it at the moment when it is still fresh, when the public is still blind, when the profit potential is greatest. That is the essence of speculation. That is the art of it, the science of it, the whole of it. Do you see the difference? Do you see why it is not about predicting, but about observing? Tips and stories mislead. Only price and action reveal the truth. There is no greater trap in speculation than listening to the chatter of others. A tip is nothing but another man's opinion, and if opinions made fortunes, every broker's office boy would be a millionaire. Yet men will sell their reason and judgment for the comfort of hearing someone else tell them what to do. Why is that? Because speculation is hard, because discipline is harder, and because the human mind always seeks a shortcut to riches. But there are no shortcuts. There is only the market, and the market speaks only in one language: price and action. Do you think you can afford to ignore that and still win? I have watched men ruin themselves on tips, and I have done so myself when I was young and foolish. The tip always comes dressed as certainty. It always sounds convincing. It promises easy money, no effort required, just faith in the whisper. But the market does not reward faith. The market punishes it. You must understand this. A tip is like a mirage in the desert. It looks like salvation to the thirsty, but when you reach it, there is nothing there. Have you ever followed a tip that turned into a disaster? Of course you have. Every man who trades has. And yet, strangely, they will take the next tip, and the next, as though the last one was only bad luck. That is not speculation. That is self-destruction. The stories are just as dangerous. Wall Street is a machine for creating stories. There is always a reason, always an explanation, always some narrative designed to explain away the action of the market. But stories are created after the fact, to soothe the minds of the crowd, to make sense of movements that need no explanation. Price is the only fact. Action is the only truth. If the stock is going up, that is all you need to know. The story may be bullish or bearish. It does not matter. The stock itself is telling you the truth. If only you will listen. Do you? Or do you still cling to the comfort of hearing why? I remember times when the whole market was gripped by a story. Some rumor, some glowing account of a company's future, and every broker's office would be buzzing with it. Men would rush in, buying on the tail, certain that they were ahead of the world. But the tape told another story. Heaviness on rallies, weakness in the buying. And sure enough, the stock would soon break, and those same men who bought on the glowing tail would be scrambling to get out, cursing their luck. But it was not luck. It was blindness. They listened to the words and ignored the price. Can you see the danger in that? The tip or the story blinds you to your own judgment. It takes away your independence, your discipline, and makes you a follower. But the follower never wins in speculation. The follower always comes in late, always takes the leftovers, always pays for the other man's profit. The only way to be consistently profitable is to rely on the one thing that cannot lie. The action of the market itself. The tipster may be honest or crooked. The story may be bright or false. But the price is never wrong. It is always the final verdict. Why then would you exchange that verdict for gossip? Do you know why men chase tips? Because they cannot stand uncertainty. They crave assurance. They want to believe someone knows. But in speculation, no one knows. Not the broker, not the newspaper, not even the insiders all the time. The only thing that shows the truth is the market itself. That is why studying the tape, the action, the behavior of prices is the only real work of the speculator. Everything else is distraction. And yet, walk into any brokerage office and what do you hear? Not quiet concentration on the tape, but chatter, rumors, tips, and stories. That is why most men lose. When a stock is ready to move, it shows it. There is no need for a story to explain it. The volume will come in. The resistance will break. The action will reveal the path of least resistance. The story may follow, but that is for the crowd, not for the professional. The professional is already in, because he trusted the action, not the tale. Have you noticed how often the big moves start quietly, without news, without fanfare, only to be explained weeks later when the story is published? By then the move is half over, and the public is just coming in. That is the difference between following stories and following action. Which side would you rather be on? You must train yourself to distrust everything but the tape. Do not believe what is whispered to you in the corridors. Do not believe what is printed in the papers. Believe only what you see in the price. The price cannot be hidden. If insiders are buying, it will show in the action. If they are selling, it will show too. The market has a way of revealing the truth in advance, if only you are willing to see it. Have you developed that willingness, or are you still searching for the easy road of listening to others? Every great mistake I ever made came from trusting something other than the market itself. Every great success I ever had came from listening only to the tape. That is not a coincidence. It is the law of speculation. The market action contains all the information you need, but it requires patience to study, discipline to wait, and courage to act without the crutch of a story. Most men are too weak for that, which is why they cling to tips. But ask yourself, has a tip ever truly made you rich? Or has it only led you into losses you could have avoided by trusting your own eyes? The danger of tips and stories is not only that they are false, but that they poison your thinking. Once you believe a story, you start to see the market through its lens. If you hear bullish talk, you ignore signs of weakness. If you hear bearish gossip, you dismiss strength. In this way, you stop being a student of the market and become a victim of your own bias. The price action may be shouting the truth at you, but you cannot hear it because the story is ringing in your ears. That is why tips are not merely useless. They are dangerous. They cloud the mind, and a clouded mind cannot speculate. Consider how the public enters every great movement. The insiders buy quietly, with no fanfare, guided by their knowledge. The action reveals the buying before the news does. Then the professionals watching the tape step in, recognizing the accumulation. The stock rises. Only then does the story appear in the newspapers, glowing accounts of the company's prospects. And who responds to that? The public. They rush in on the story, buying from the professionals who are already taking profits. The public is always the last to know and the last to act because they trust stories. But the professional trusts only the action, and that is why he profits. Do you want to be in the crowd or do you want to be in the lead? So I tell you again, tips and stories mislead. They always have, and they always will. The only way to survive and prosper is to free yourself from them entirely. If you wish to speculate, do not ask what others think. Do not listen to what others say. Look at the market. Study the action. Learn to read the truth that is written in the movement of prices. That is the only story worth following, the only tip worth taking, the only path that leads to profit. Patience in waiting for the right setup is harder than acting, but far more profitable. Most men in speculation believe that activity itself is the secret to success. They imagine that buying and selling every day, darting in and out of the market, shows skill and intelligence. But the market does not pay for activity. The market pays only for being right, and being right comes not from constant action, but from disciplined waiting until the time is ripe. The hardest lesson I ever learned, and the most expensive, was that doing nothing can often be the most profitable course of all. Tell me, can you sit and wait, or must you always be doing something? The urge to act is the great enemy of the speculator. A man may sit for days watching the tape, knowing deep down that there is no real opportunity, but he grows restless. He wants excitement. He wants the feeling of being in the game, so he forces a trade. And what comes of it? Usually a loss. Then, when the real opportunity finally appears, his capital is already diminished and his confidence is shaken. He cannot act with boldness, because he wasted his strength on trifles. Have you ever found yourself in that position? Of course you have. Every man who speculates knows the gnawing itch of impatience, the need to act when he ought to wait. Patience is the rarest quality in speculation because it is against human nature. We are wired to believe that effort equals reward, that constant motion produces results. In most walks of life that is true. A farmer must work his land, a merchant must tend his shop, a laborer must toil for his wages. But speculation is different. In speculation, the greatest work is waiting. The market does not move because you want it to. It moves when it is ready, and not before. A man who buys too soon is just as wrong as the man who buys too late. Only the man who waits for the right moment earns. Do you see how unnatural that feels? To earn by waiting instead of by working. When I was young, I thought the way to make money was to be always in the market. I feared that if I sat idle, I would miss something. So I chased every fluctuation, jumping from one stock to another, convinced that opportunity must be hiding in every tick. I did not yet understand that the market offers only a few real opportunities in a year, and that all the rest is noise. That realization cost me dearly. It took years of losses before I understood that waiting was not wasted time, but the very essence of speculation. Have you paid such tuition yet, or are you still trying to learn the easy way? The man who lacks patience is doomed to failure. He may strike it lucky once or twice, but luck is not a method. Sooner or later, impatience leads him to overtrade, to gamble on movements that are not real, to exhaust his capital before the big chance arrives. I have seen brilliant men, quick thinkers and clever traders, ruined because they could not sit on their hands. They could analyze, they could judge, but they could not wait. The market punishes that flaw without mercy. Ask yourself, are you able to resist temptation, or are you compelled to act even when you know you should not? The waiting I speak of is not idleness. It is not laziness. It is watchfulness. A man must study the tape, watch the price action, and wait for the line of least resistance to declare itself. That may take days, weeks, even months. Most men cannot stand that. They grow restless, and they talk themselves into seeing signals that are not there. But the market does not reward imagination. It rewards recognition. You must wait until the move is clear, unmistakable, undeniable. That is when you act. Until then, you wait, and waiting is work. Do you have the strength to work in that way? Impatience costs more fortunes than ignorance. A man who knows little but waits for the right moment can do better than a clever man who cannot keep still. The crowd is always impatient. They want their profits today. They want action now. That is why they are always late to the big move. They buy in haste, without waiting for confirmation, and then they are shaken out at the first setback. The professional waits for the market to prove itself. He buys only when the action tells him the time has come, and he holds as long as the trend remains. That difference in patience is the difference between ruin and fortune. Can you see how vital that is? There were times in my career when I sat out entire markets. I would watch as others rushed in, chasing one stock after another, while I did nothing. They mocked me, called me timid, said I had lost my nerve. But when the real move began, I was ready. I had my capital intact, my judgment clear, my courage unshaken. I was able to act boldly while they were exhausted and confused. And in that boldness lay the profit. The man who spends his bullets on skirmishes has nothing left for the battle. But the man who waits and saves his fire for the decisive moment wins. Which man do you think you are? The temptation to trade is greatest when the market is dull. Men cannot endure boredom, so they invent opportunities where none exist. They tell themselves that small moves can be caught, that they must earn something while they wait. But the market is merciless to such thinking. It punishes those who trade for excitement. The professional understands that boredom is part of the game. He welcomes it, because he knows that dull markets precede great movements. He does not waste his powder on meaningless action. He saves it for the storm. Do you recognize dullness as your friend, or do you flee from it in search of excitement? Patience also means the courage to sit tight after you have entered. Many men can wait to enter a trade, but once in, they cannot bear the fluctuations. They are shaken out too soon. cutting profits short and letting losses grow. But patience does not end with entry, it continues through the life of the trade. The big money comes not from the act of buying or selling, but from holding through the long sweep of the move. That requires immense patience, because the market will tempt you, shake you, test you at every turn. Most men fail that test. Will you? So when I tell you that patience in waiting for the right setup is harder than acting, I mean it in every sense. Harder to wait for the entry. Harder to sit tight in the trade. Harder to do nothing when the crowd is busy. Harder to hold your nerve when your profits are growing and the market swings against you. But that hardness is where the profits lie. The man who conquers his impatience conquers the market. The man who cannot wait, who must always be active, will always be broke. It is as simple and as difficult as that. The courage to act boldly, once the signal is clear, separates winners from losers. There is no greater dividing line in speculation than this. Most men may watch the same tape, observe the same action, study the same charts, but when the hour comes to place their bet, their nerve fails them. They hesitate, they doubt, they nibble instead of plunging, and the great opportunity slips past them. Courage is not recklessness. Courage is not gambling. Courage is acting decisively when the odds are with you, when the market itself has given the signal. Do you possess that courage, or do you only imagine that you do until the moment arrives? It is easy to talk of courage when you are out of the market, when no money is at risk, when the danger is abstract. But when your capital is on the line, when your finger hovers over the button, or your order is about to be written, that is when you discover what you are made of. I have seen seasoned men who knew the market well, crumble at that instant. They could read the setup, they knew the opportunity was ripe, but they lacked the boldness to act in size. And so they missed the move, or took only a fraction of what was theirs for the taking. Have you ever watched a great move unfold without you, simply because you lacked the nerve to commit when the time was right? The crowd never acts boldly. The crowd waits for reassurance, for confirmation, for the newspapers to shout the story. And by the time they are ready, the opportunity is gone. The professional must act before the crowd, which means he must act without their approval, without their comfort. That requires courage. The tape will give the signal. The action will reveal the truth. But it will not feel comfortable. The best trades seldom do. They come at a moment when fear is high, when doubt is thick, when most men cannot bring themselves to act. That is why the few who have the courage to act boldly are rewarded so greatly. Do you see how fear paralyzes the many and enriches the few? There is no place for half measures in speculation. A small man's trade in a big moment is wasted. If the signal is clear, if the odds are with you, then you must act in proportion. That does not mean betting recklessly, but it means betting boldly enough to make the victory count. Too many men place timid stakes when the opportunity is ripe and bold stakes when the opportunity is uncertain. That is exactly backward. The courage I speak of is not blind daring, but the strength to risk heavily when the market itself has shown you the path. Can you risk big when you are right, or do you only risk big when you are guessing? Every fortune I ever made came from one thing, seeing the opportunity and acting without hesitation. The tape told me the truth, the action confirmed it, and I plunged. There were no tips, no stories, no whispers, only the clear message of the market. And yet, I have seen others at the very same moment, men just as knowledgeable, shrink back, arguing with themselves, paralyzed by the fear of being wrong. They would nibble a few shares, then sell at the first reaction, while I held and pressed my advantage. That difference in courage, nothing else, created the difference in results. Do you recognize how thin the line is between failure and fortune? The market will never give you perfect certainty. If you wait for that, you will wait forever. The signal will come, but it will always carry risk. There will always be reasons to doubt, reasons to hesitate. Courage is the ability to act in spite of those doubts, because the action of the market outweighs them. The man who demands certainty will never trade boldly enough to win. The man who understands that risk is unavoidable, but that some risks are favorable, is the man who can strike when the iron is hot, Have you accepted that risk is the price of reward, or are you still hoping to find a way to win without ever daring? I have seen the market offer only a few great chances in a year. Those chances were plain to anyone watching carefully, but only the bold profited from them. The timid man was content to take a small piece or none at all. He told himself he was being prudent, but prudence in speculation is not about timidity. Prudence is about waiting for the right moment and then committing with all your strength. There is no point in saving yourself for opportunities that never come. When the market does open the door, you must walk through it with confidence, or it will close in your face. How many times have you hesitated and watched a fortune pass you by? The courage to act boldly also means enduring the judgment of others. When you act before the crowd, they will call you reckless. They will mock you, they will doubt you, they will say you are a fool. But when the move unfolds and the profits roll in, they will envy you. Can you endure being called a fool for acting on your own judgment? Or do you crave the comfort of agreement, even if it costs you the profit? Most men would rather lose with the crowd than win alone. That is why they remain poor. There is a kind of paralysis that strikes when money is at stake. A man may study for weeks, waiting for the opportunity, and then when it comes, he is seized with doubt. He asks himself, what if I am wrong? What if this is a trap? What if the market turns against me? And while he hesitates, the move begins without him. That hesitation is death to the speculator. You must prepare yourself in advance so that when the signal comes, your mind is already decided. You act without hesitation because you know hesitation is the enemy? Do you prepare yourself, or do you allow fear to grip you in the moment of decision? I have never believed that speculation is about brains. Many clever men have gone broke in the market. It is about character, the ability to wait, and then the ability to act. Those two qualities, patience and courage, are the whole of it. Without patience, you waste your bullets on worthless trades. Without courage, you waste the true opportunities when they come. Both are rare, but courage at the moment of truth is rarer still. That is why the field of speculation is littered with clever men who knew what to do, but lacked the boldness to do it. Do you see now why courage is the dividing line? There is no greater torment than knowing you were right, but that you lacked the nerve to act boldly. To see the move you predicted unfold without you, to watch the profits accrue to others while you stand aside, all because you failed to act when the chance was yours. That is agony. I have lived it, and I vowed never to endure it again. It taught me that the market does not reward the timid. It rewards the man who dares when the time is ripe, and it punishes the man who dares when the time is wrong. The difference is the signal.